You're listening to KHTS On Demand. For more podcasts, visit hometownstation.com.
AM 1220 KHTS.
You're listening to Life Leadership with Alex Urbina, right here in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. This is the kind of show where teachers, counselors, and parents gain valuable insight and a better understanding of teenagers and young adults in today's world. We will bring you some of the experts in your community to hear their perspectives on the topics that you want to know about. And today we're going to do some parent coaching live on the radio. Now, before we get to that, I'd like to break down the distinction of coaching. What is coaching? Coaching is about helping people through the process of creating their own results in their lives. It's about helping them break through some of the obstacles that keeps getting in the way of what they want. Now, what I really like to talk about is the value of having a coach. You see, your coaches can see things that you can't. When you're stuck in it, they're on the outside looking in, pointing out things that you just can't see. They're also there to remind you of your commitment. When you get distracted by shiny objects, or when you don't want to play anymore, when you want to give up, throw your hands up, surrender, they're there to remind you of what your commitment was and how important it was to you and what it meant to you. They're also there to give you different perspectives to look at. I think that's the most powerful tool in their belt. They're also there freed up from your own doubts, your fears, and your excuses. Now, they might have their own fears and doubts and excuses in their own lives, but they don't have yours, and that's valuable to you. They also open up possibilities that you can't see yet. And more importantly, I think that they believe in you when you don't. Another great asset about coaches is that they develop a certain way of being or different ways of being that fosters trust, faith, inspiration, and courage. Now, my coaching style is that I believe that all the answers are within ourselves. And my job is just to ask the questions to draw out your own answers. Now, when we come back from the break, you're going to meet an amazing woman and a loving mother. And I'm going to coach her live on the air. So stay tuned for more. You're listening to Life Leadership with Alex Urbina, right here in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to Life Leadership with Alex Urbina, right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. This is the kind of show where teachers, counselors, and parents gain valuable insight and a better understanding of teenagers and young adults in today's world. We will bring you some of the experts in your community to hear their perspectives on the topics that you want to know about. Today we're doing some parent coaching live on the radio. And joining me in studio today is Janice Zanin.
Hi.
How are you, Janice?
I'm great. How are you, Alex?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for being willing to share and open yourself up a little bit and be a part of this contribution to this segment of the show.
I look forward to the coaching. You know, as parents, I don't know how many of us are willing to acknowledge that we need help and actually go out and get it. But there are times, you know, we have cycles in our lives. And I'm at a cycle right now where I realize I need some help. So this is an amazing opportunity for me as well.
So tell us a little bit about you and tell us a little bit about your kids so that we can kind of paint the picture on the front end of this.
Okay. I have lived here in Santa Clarita for 19 years. And I have a college degree. I work part-time and was married to a professional person. And I was in a marriage where I think my role as he gave it to me was, you take care of the home, you take care of the kids. I wasn't expected to go out and work or do anything that I, as a grown-up woman, had aspired to. This was my job. And that was fine when the kids were little. He traveled an awful lot. And when he retired and was home, I started to realize that we had never done the homework. And I think a lot of relationships start out for whatever reason they start out for, but a lot of us don't do the background work and talk about what our future is going to look like and what we want, how life is going to be once one person or the other is retired and at home, when the dynamics change. What is that going to look like? And we didn't. I had what he said was my role, in the marriage and in the home, and it didn't. We hadn't thought forward enough to what was going to happen when the kids were older, when they were going to, be ready to go off to college, and what that relationship or that family dynamic was going to look like for us. Hence, we started having issues with control. When someone is off working out of state or off working 9 to 5, they have their role, and the other person at home has a role as well. And if you come into a foreign situation that you're not used to, some people want to take control. I get that, but don't take my job. So we started having issues, and things in my situation got very toxic. And I understood at some point that I was in a very unhealthful situation for me, and I have 2 daughters. And so I chose a couple of years ago to instigate a divorce in this situation. And I think a lot of people are going through, especially in this environment now with financial problems and the economy the way it is and just the world the way it is right now. There's a lot of stresses within the home and outside the home. And I know that I'm not alone in going through what I'm going through. But of course, when you're going through it, you think you're the only one going through it. And my kids felt that way. And unfortunately, I have 2 daughters. And they see their friends and their friends' families very differently than what they saw in their own family. And I always tried to, unfortunately, I think I always tried to put on the good face, and I wanted people's perception to be, oh, that's a healthy, happy family, and they're successful and they've got things going on for them, and everything's positive. And I put on that brave face. Unfortunately, it wasn't always true. And so my kids have had to learn some hard truths about our family and about their parents. And my concern today is they are young teenage women, and they saw a lot of things in their own family dynamic that were toxic or not healthy. And my concern with them is they're in the private school system, and so they're not trouble kids like I would consider, we talk about on some of the other shows, Crisis or whatever. They've not experienced the drugs and the alcohol. They're not acting out like that. But I think that they're displaying more emotional problems, having had to go through a very difficult divorce with a parent that fought, that didn't want the divorce and fought tooth and nail not to cooperate. So I want to be sure that I have the tools so that, if nothing else, they're always going to have that in their dynamic, that they are children of a divorce. But I want them as young women moving forward to be as healthy and as stable and as mature as possible. And I want them to be successful and happy people, and so I'm looking for tools to help them to do that, because they didn't get a balanced upbringing, having a parent that was non-existent, or traveling a lot, and just a mother who, and I came from a very loving, close-knit family. My parents are still married. They're 93 and 87, and they still hug and kiss each other. My family hugs and kisses each other every time we see each other. But they didn't see that every day in their own household, my daughters. And so I'm concerned about what kind of men they're going to gravitate to, as boyfriends and ultimately husbands, what kind of mothers they're going to be, what kind of people they're going to be. I'm very community-minded. My ex was not. I'm very involved in the community and with my kids. My ex was not. So my concern as a parent is to be the best parent I can be and help my teenagers be the most stable and happy and healthy people they can be, so that they can contribute to society in a positive way.
Well, let me start off by acknowledging you for being a warrior and fighting for your girls, because it's very common that a lot of women won't see the signs of a relationship that is toxic or abusive and won't have the courage to take a stand for their kids the way that you did. So I want to take a moment and just acknowledge you, because I don't know if you've ever been recognized for that.
No, I've been blamed for taking that step and breaking up a family.
So look at me for a moment, for all that you've done for your girls, and they probably are not mature enough yet to acknowledge this. And I'm sure you'll get this acknowledgement at some point in the future. But I just want to take this moment to say good for you and good for your family. And I know that you paid a lot of prices, and you took a lot, I'm sure, probably even from your family, and you had to go through a lot of fighting the conditional thoughts of stay with your man, fight for your family, and you had to struggle through that. So I want to really acknowledge you, first of all, for taking that stand and being mindful enough and listening to your heart, because your heart was saying, this isn't good for my girls.
Yes.
I don't care. I get to stand up and be a powerful woman and say, for yourself, that I no longer get to be in this type of relationship. And so I just really want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you, Alex. That's important, because I was in a relationship where I wasn't acknowledged for 18 years. And I wasn't allowed to be the woman that I know I am. And I wanted to be my best self. I wanted to be my best self for my ex, for my husband, and for my children. And I didn't have the space to do that in that unhealthy environment. And I fought it for years. I went through counseling for years before I made the step. It was very, very difficult, because I came from a Catholic background, Catholic family, where my mom and dad are still married after 60-something years. It's just not what we did.
I get it.
Yeah. And I want it better for my kids, though. And I couldn't allow them to grow up and see the things and hear the things that they were seeing in our household, and then go out with their friends to their friends' families' houses and see different, and then come home and question why we weren't like that, why we didn't do those kinds of family things, why we didn't have, those kind of family connections and traditions and things, because we didn't have an intact family.
Yeah.
Even though there were a husband and, mom and a dad in that household, we didn't have an intact family.
Yeah, I see that. So when children go through a divorce, they're going to create some self-limiting beliefs about themselves, about relationships, and about the world. So the question I'm going to ask you is, what kind of self-limiting beliefs do you think that these little girls made up about a relationship that had nothing to do with them? This relationship was between a man and a woman trying to figure out how to co-create a family. And because of whatever insecurities you guys each had and the roles you played in making that relationship flourish, it didn't. But these little girls looking through filters with a young mind don't know how to wrap their mind around, this is just mom and dad stuff. We don't know how to do that when we're young. So the mind has to make something up. And so what happened was they made up beliefs, limiting beliefs, that now are part of how they see themselves and how they interact in the world. So what kind of limiting beliefs do you think they would have created having lived in that household, watching what they watched?
I think, and I want to preface everything I say by saying this. I understand we both had limitations. My ex and I both had limitations based on the environment we grew up in and the tools that we had as grown-ups. No disrespect to him, but I think that the one thing my children would say, the erroneous belief, is that they weren't good enough for him to love them, or for a particular parent to love them. They weren't the stars that he wanted them to be, or they weren't the athletes that he wanted them to be. They weren't all the things. They weren't boys, first of all.
Well, they weren't enough, period.
They weren't enough, exactly. And he pushed them to be something that they weren't capable of being, something he was that he wanted to project on them that they weren't capable of being. And I think even today, they still feel that they couldn't live up to his expectations of them. I hear that from them in different ways. I see that manifested in how they choose the things at school that they're involved in. He was big on pushing them in sports, and they're girls, and they weren't ever going to be major league football players or basketball players or, superstars like that. It just wasn't them. And they have had to learn to choose their own path, but that is in the back of their minds, that they weren't good enough. They didn't measure up to the expectations. And I think for teenagers, that is one of the saddest things for me that I saw and that I had to pull them out of, because they're good enough just for being who they are.
That's right.
They're good enough just for being my kids, for being creatures of God. And that was the other part of our relationship problem. I was very spiritual. I was raised Catholic. He was not, and was not willing to support us in that. And that caused a division. And I am of the opinion that your children need to have some kind of spiritual grounding. And so I took that on as my job and my role, but wasn't supported in that. And that was difficult. So I'm sure that's a big one for them, that they weren't enough.
So just so you know, the I'm not enough limiting belief is, I think, one of the most common limiting beliefs that we can have as human beings. And from my experience in being in the training room 15, 16 years working with teenagers, what I've noticed is a lot of it comes from not being recognized by your parents for the gift that they are, not for what they do.
Thank you. Yeah.
Not for what they're capable of, and not for what is actually being created by them, but just because they're a gift from God. Mm-hmm. And so because this is what they're seeking as children, is to be recognized. And the only people that can recognize them is mom and dad. And recognition comes from simply looking at them and connecting with them from a place of, I see you. Mm-hmm. And because I see you, you're enough, period. And so all the other interactions that happen in life that have gone on in your household, they've made up a belief that's not true. But the belief that they created, and it becomes their reality, is that I'm not enough. Mm-hmm. And so everything that they do and everything that they choose and all the actions they're taking is coming from a I'm not enoughness. And so in order for them to clean up some of those beliefs that aren't true, is for them to experience the awe of who they are. Some of the different ways that they can experience that, one of them is developed in a training that I've created called the Teen Life Leadership Training. And we'll talk about this later. But I just want to emphasize the power of this training. What makes this training so powerful is that I put these children or these young adults into scenarios, these life scenarios, mm-hmm. where they're kind of forced to participate, not forced by me, but forced within themselves, like this yearning to want to discover how amazing they are. Mm-hmm. And when they go through these processes, these experiential exercises, they discover for themselves that they are enough. So it doesn't matter how much you tell them in their ear or in their mind, or you speak to them being enough. They need to discover it for themselves. That's the power that we have, is when I discover it, it's my truth.
Absolutely.
When you say it, it's your opinion. There's a difference. And that's what separates my training from all the other different workshops that are out there, is I set it up and tee it up to be experiential. Mm-hmm. Now we'll talk about that later. I want to coach you on some of the things that you're dealing with and some of the things as a parent, how to help your daughters. So let's talk about your oldest daughter. Let's not put a name to her, but let's just refer to her as your oldest daughter. What are some of the issues that you want to support her in? What are some of the things that you're noticing that she's acting out in, or how is it being manifested, or what are the symptoms that she's displaying?
Well, I think because she's oldest and has had to deal, once you're divorced, you've got to do the spend time with dad, spend time with mom, that visitation thing. And because it was so toxic when they spent time with their dad, she ran interference for her younger sister. Now I see her, they're 2 years apart, So at school, they're both in high school, and they're both involved in, some similar activities, and so they have similar friends. And I see that the older one was always the popular one in elementary and grade school, great grades, didn't have to worry too much about her and didn't have to press her to, stay on top of things. I notice now that she's, she picks on her little sister and kind of doesn't want her hanging around. She doesn't want to be bothered with her. She wants her own friends. She wants to do her own thing. And I get the sense that she doesn't want to be responsible for her. She doesn't want to look out for her, doesn't want to be responsible for her. But the attitude, the meanness, those kinds of things I don't appreciate. Like I said earlier, my kids they've grown up seeing the effects of alcoholism and drugs. They went to private school, so they got the DARE program, and they've gotten that drilled into them. That's not their issue. It's more emotional and social issues and how they deal with each other. And she is not the nicest to her little sister. She's nicer to her little friends than she is to her sister. And that bothers me. And then, teenagers, obviously, they all can, they have their moments where they're talking back to you or disrespectful of you. But I think because our dynamic was the three of us together when my ex was traveling, that she thinks we're on the same plane, or we're buddies, we're friends. And I keep telling her, I'm 51 years old. I don't need a 17-year-old friend. You have your own friends. I'm an adult woman who's got things that I need to do. And, for me, that I see, she's trying to exert her independence with me more. And that, I guess I'm sure that's a part of growing up. But I don't think emotionally she's ready to be on her own. And I think that's becoming a fight. She's going through the applications for college, and she wants to go as far away as possible to get away from her dad. I get that, but I don't see that she's ready for that right now.
Okay, so let's talk about this issue specifically.
Okay.
Let me tell you what I think you're saying, or what I'm hearing you say.
Okay.
Is that she's displaying this kind of an attitude where she's talking back, or that she's being different with her friends rather than being with her sister, right? And from what I'm hearing is that that's all driven from something that's underneath. So I'm going to ask you some questions for you to take a look at what you think it might possibly be.
Okay.
So if you were to try to identify what that is, that's the driving force with the attitude that she's giving, what do you think it could be that she's got going on underneath?
Alex, I'm glad you asked that, because I've been thinking about it, and in relation to her relationship with her sister and their time with their dad, I think she took on the responsibility of, I have to protect my little sister. She was always the one that got the brunt of his displeasure. And I think my older daughter felt like she had to protect her. My younger daughter was afraid of her dad and wouldn't speak up for herself. So her older sister took that role. And now I think she's trying to divorce herself from the family and from her sister. She wants to get as far away from us, obviously, from her dad and all of that drama. But she's trying to put a wedge between her and her sister. She wants her own friends, even though they're both involved in the same activities and groups at school. She wants her own friends. She doesn't want her little sister hanging around. She almost, I think some of her meanness is to keep her sister at bay now, to keep her sister away from her. And unfortunately, my younger daughter is the most compassionate, the most loving, considerate little girl. I mean, 15, she's not little, but she just wants to be with her sister. She just wants to, and so it's difficult to see. But I think underneath it all, she's tired of having to be the protector.
Okay,
she's
great.
tired of being the one that has to stick up for everybody.
So now what we did was we just sliced it down the middle. Now I'm going to take a half piece, and I'm going to ask you to slice the half piece down in the middle.
All right.
Now there's something underneath that. There's a certain feeling, there's a certain thing that's going on underneath that. It's called, are you ready? Mm-hmm. It's called resentment.
I see that.
So what's the resentment about? What is she resentful for?
Probably that within the divorce, within the years of the most toxicity and unhealthiness in our family unit, that she has had to grow up and do things, at a stage where she wanted to just be the little kid. She just wanted to have fun, just wanted to be loved, just wanted to be like her little sister and, no, without a care, whatever. And she's had to grow up faster than her friends or other people, in her age group because of the things she's experienced.
Yeah. And so that resentment that she has because whether she took that role on for herself or whether it was implied that she should or for whatever reason she did it, there's some resentment that's burning and it's like a fuel inside of her that is acting out in an attitude. Mm-hmm. It's acting out in a meanness.
When she makes those little snarky remarks.
All of that.
Yes.
All the little
flippant.
All of it
Okay.
is all driven by the resentment she still has from some issues from her past. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the great things about the Teen Life Leadership Training, on the second day, I've developed a very powerful 2-hour process where we give teenagers permission as a team, as a unit. We collectively go through a process of catharsis where we get to experience and fully flush up all of our past experiences that we've stuffed, that we've suppressed, including guilt, resentment, all the stuff that's been holding us from us feeling alive and feeling free and being able to realize our magnificence. It's all because we got stuff that we're storing. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going on here, is that she's storing some stuff that has happened from the past. And a lot of organizations, including schools, they only know how to deal with the symptoms, which is the acting out,
Sure.
which is punishment, or you've been not showing up at school, so we're going to expel you. Our society is used to focusing on all the symptoms of things that are going on, but people rarely get down to the core and flush it out from the inside out. And so I don't know if that helps sheds a different perspective on what's going on with your daughter, but I believe that once she gets permission to fully heal herself from the inside out so she can finally let it all out and resolve it, will be the moment that she will start to show up differently in her life. Mm-hmm. She'll be freed up to be able to be loving and compassionate with her sister. And you brought up the friend part. I 100% agree with you about, listen, I'm your dad. I'm your mom.
Yeah, I have to be everything now. I can't be your friend.
Yeah, nor can I be your friend. I'm not interested in being your friend because I get to be the stand for your greatness. And if I'm your friend, it's a very kind of gray area for me to take that stand for you. So let's not get it twisted. I'm your mom or I'm your dad, and I'm here to intervene in the things that you're going down that path where it's not setting you up to win. Mm-hmm. So I'm in alignment with you when you say you're not their friend, but you get to be there to be friendly to her and to be a great listener and to be a space for her to share and let out some of that stuff. What are some of the things that you're hearing me say? What are some of the things that are coming to your own conclusions right now as we've gotten into this dialogue?
Well, I'm glad you mirror my feeling about the whole friend thing, because I felt guilty. And I think because we went through so many years of this dysfunctional family thing, and I was trying to make a good showing of it, that, everything was healthy and happy in this family when I knew it wasn't. I felt guilty. So when they were little, I allowed a lot of things to, it was fun time. And I'm the mom that, take the neighborhood kids to Disneyland, and we go do the museum and the parties and the picnics, have your friends over. I was, trying to have the fun house and make everything good for them, because I knew when we were an intact family that it wasn't. But I, at some point, also knew, especially now as a single mom, I have to be the enforcer. I have to be the mom and the dad. I have to make the rules and enforce them. My job, as he put it, was always the house and the kids. It's no different as a single mom. Still my job. And you just gave, you gave me validation. I think my daughter really sometimes is upset with me because I don't want to be her friend. I don't want to pal around with her or be buddy like, some of these young moms. And I'm an older mom too. I had them at, my first one when I was 33. So I'm an older mom. And it's just not in me. Somebody's got to be, and that unfortunately was the problem. Somebody's got to be the bad guy. When my ex was on the road, I was the good guy and the bad guy. When I had to discipline, I couldn't say, oh, wait till your father comes home or let him do that because he wasn't home. So I've maintained that. Somebody's got to be the one that sets the rules and enforce them. And I think my job is no different as they get older. And I'm not willing to let that go. At some point, hopefully we can respect each other as adults when they're, grown and out of my household. But right now, I can't be their buddy. I can't be their friend. And sometimes they make me feel guilty about that. I just have to hold on to what I know is right.
All right. Now, are you ready for some feedback?
Sure.
Okay. Feedback it's a constructive observation of what I see and what I'm hearing. And it's a different perspective, so we can open up possibilities.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you it in a possibility form question. Are you open to the possibility that because you took on the role of being the bad guy, to be that intervention, to walk the line, to hold them accountable, be that strong rock for them, are you open to the possibility that you kind of got hardened?
Absolutely, Alex.
You got stiff, and you put up some walls to protect you, and what your kids might be looking for is for you to bring some of those walls down, to come back to the good cop, because we do the bad cop, good cop, and because the father checked out for whatever reason, but is not there being that role in the family dynamic, you stepped up to be that. And during that role change, you stayed on that side and you harden yourself up so you can be that role, that stand, that rigor. And what they've really wanted, and the possibility, and I need you to look at it as a possibility, that they want the vulnerable side of you. They want to connect with you. They want to be intimate with you. They want you to be able to be that loving, compassionate, safe space for them. Are you open to the possibility that that's what they're yearning for you?
I'll be willing to accept some of that. I am of the two parents, I was the more affectionate, loving, demonstrative one. I mean, like night and day, 100% mom, non-existent from dad. So I thought at some point I was the only one they were getting that from. And I am absolutely positive that at some point I did harden because I realized that they had to have the structure and the rules and that kind of environment to grow up properly. And so I'm sure I've gotten away from being as playful and affectionate with them, and also their ages. My youngest one still, hugs and kisses me and says, I love you every night. We still tell each other, I love you every night. My older one, not so much. And I want to be that way with her, but, I also want to respect her space. She's not the kind of person, she doesn't like people in her space. She doesn't like strange people touching her. She is the one I let come to me. When she comes in my room and sits on the bed, or when she comes and puts her arm around me or whatever, I give into it. I absolutely give into it because that's my nature. But I will tell you, I agree, because my role in our marriage was your job is the kids and the family. I felt like I had to be the cop. I had to be the bad guy. I had to be that person, and it did harden me. And that wasn't me. Not at all. That's not how I grew up. That's not how I thought I would be with my kids. I knew at 5 I wanted to have kids, but that's not how I thought I would be. But I was forced to be that way because I was the parent at home all the time, 100% with these kids, and somebody had to provide some kind of structure, and maintain a certain type of household that my husband was looking for.
Look, I get it, and I'm a firm believer of, I think it was necessary, and I applaud you for seeing that you needed to step up to that role so that you can have some structure and that you can teach your daughters what lines that they can't cross. I get it.
I absolutely knew if we went out to a function and somebody walked up to him and said, I just met your kids and they're, just climbing all over the place, I would hear that. I would get that when I got home. That was my job. They were an extension of me, and they had to be raised a certain way. They had to act a certain way. They had to represent the family in a certain way. I was under no false pretenses about that. So yes, I became the cop.
And because of that, because you went to that role, you taught them some amazing values, and they had some powerful learning experiences that put them sort of in line. Now, there's a drawback to that. Now we've got to look at the prices they paid because you went and you stood that line. Now, some of the prices that they're paying, you got to be open to the possibility that some of those prices they're paying is now there's some resentment being created because you went to that place and they lost that mom, that nurturing, loving, vulnerable mom that you were probably earlier on when they were children, because dad filled the other role. So you were that nurturing, loving, vulnerable, compassionate, sensitive mom, which is no longer there anymore. It's not that it's not there, it's just you don't access it very easily and as often. So
because I still think I'm the loving, affectionate mom when the situation calls for it, or when I can get it in, but by no means is that the first thought. The first thought is,
is your homework done? Are
exactly.
Your chores
I'm
done?
the one fussing and nagging 94/7.
Yeah.
I just, that's my job.
Yeah, I get it. And
I'm not the fun mom.
Yeah,
I'm
and
the other mom.
You're not describing anything that's uncommon with probably 80% of the moms that are out there. So, you're not way off course. It's just that as we're living life, it's balance. And as we as parents get to figure out what that balance is, and we get to every once in a while have kind of like a check-in, like a meeting of the minds. Like, you at work, you get like a functional review every year.
Sure.
What's working, what's not working. But how many parents actually have a place to go to, or some kind of a program where we can go, all right, let's sit down and let's see what's working, what's not working, and then get a coach or a mentor or somebody, usually it's your manager that sits down with you and goes, okay, this is the great things you were doing this year, and these are the things that you need to work on. So can I kind of coach you on how to make the progress so that every year we're moving the cons to the pros?
Sure.
And so this is kind of a check-in point for you to just really stop and look at yourself and do an evaluation. And, this is what's called conscious parenting, is you being willing to stop and look at yourself and do an evaluation, whether it's monthly, weekly, to daily, to hourly, to minute by minute. Just kind of check in with yourself and noticing what's going on and where you've been kind of slipping on that balance wheel.
Okay. That's, I think that goes along with, like I said, we didn't walk into a marriage talking about what the future was going to look like, what our roles were, that kind of thing. We didn't communicate. I'm trying really hard now to be that way with my kids. There's a fine line, as a single parent, you don't want them to take on an adult role and try and worry about adult issues and responsibilities, but I want to be more interactive and communicative to them, because they didn't come from an environment where they got it a lot on both sides. I'm open to all the possibilities. Like I said up front, I'm looking for tools for us as a family unit now, the three of us, to get healthier and get better. Because, one day soon they're going to be on their own, and I need to know that they have the tools to make it on their own.
Yeah, and I get that it's important that you produce worthy, powerful, confident, enough, right?
Absolutely.
Powerful young women that when they start getting into relationships, that they've worked out some of the more key insecurities, so they don't go into relationships having all these self-worth issues.
Or having to get in a relationship because that man validates them.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I do not want that.
Okay,
they
so
need to be enough on their own.
Great. So that happens only coming from personal breakthroughs and perspective shifts within themselves. it's not enough anymore to tell your kids how amazing they are. Because I coach families all over the place and from all different parts of, the spectrum. And what's common in all of them is that, look, I can't love my kids enough. I can't tell them enough they're amazing. Yeah. It comes to a point where they have to
know it,
self-realize it on their own. They have to come to their own conclusion that they're enough, that they're unique, that they're created in the image and likeness of God, that they're special, that they're powerful. And that comes from you giving them opportunities to get out there and to discover. And that's what personal discovery is all about. I'm excited for you.
I'm excited too, Alex.
I'm excited for your young girls and their future and what it holds for them. Now, the youngest one, you shared with me about her there's different personality styles.
Very different personality style. Diagnosed in 5th grade with ADD, and with a parent that wasn't very accepting of that, didn't understand it, and wasn't very accepting of it. She fought with him a lot. I think he just didn't understand that meant that she processed things differently, and he held her to the same standards as the other sister and compared her to the other sister, and when she didn't live up to it or didn't do like normal, what his word, normal people would do, or didn't do it like normal people, he had an issue with that, which is where the older sister came in trying to protect her a lot of the time, and her fear of her dad came from his reaction to her and this, the way that she functioned on a day-to-day basis with this diagnosis. I think what has come out of that is her rebellion against him, or her rebellion is her lackluster care of her room. Her slipping of grades has, I think, come out of, her rebellion against him and his standards, and also stress and things going through the divorce. But I think the thing that, I love about her the most is that she's gone through so much. She was the one that got picked on the most of the two of them. But she has an attitude where I think she's going to grow up and not take a lot of shit from people. She's hardened herself. She knows that you can't hold things in. If you've got a problem, you need to talk to people. When she was young, if something happened to her, somebody did something to her, all you had to do was say sorry. That's all she wanted from you. Acknowledge me, say sorry, let's move on. Not as popular as her older sister, not as many friends, but a really, really good friend. I think she's a better friend to her friends than her sister is. She supports her sister, loves her sister, wants to be like her sister, although I think being under her sister's shadow was a problem for her as well. When she came to the same high school her older sister's at, she didn't want to be in that position. She was always compared to her sister. Even in elementary and grade school, because they would have the same teachers. It was a small private school. They had the same teachers. A lot of time the teachers would compare her to her sister, confuse her, and call her sister's name. So I'm sure she's got some resentment behind all of that as well. But she manages her stuff. She manages her feelings and her emotions about what's going on in a more mature manner, I think, than her sister does. And she's told her sister some things about how to manage relationships and difficulties with her sister's friends that I've sat back and said, wow, that was kind of mature. That's eye-opening, because she hasn't had as many experiences as her older sister personally with friends and with, the drama her older sister's been through, but she sees things. She's intuitive. Very different child, and I tell her all the time, she's special. She has different gifts. She doesn't have to be the class valedictorian or the student council president or Miss Popularity. She has different gifts. She's a really good friend, a really good person, very considerate. She's a good kid.
And you're proud of her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And she's not had the athletic successes or the educational, academic kind of successes her sisters had. But she's a great kid. She's just trying to find her way in all of this stuff we're going through as well. I'm sorry.
It's okay. And what do you want for her?
I want her to be healthy and happy. I want her to be successful at whatever it is she chooses. And we understand that her path may not be like her sister's. She's watching her sister go through college applications and where she might want to go, and she's applying to all these schools back east and big private, all these things. And what I started doing, the high school had, college fairs and all these college-related things, and I started taking my younger daughter this year. In 10th grade, I said, you know what? We need to start focusing on you and your goals, your future too. And so whenever there was something I could take her to, I would take her so she could start looking at, well, I need to prepare now. I need to start dreaming now. Where am I going to go? What kinds of things do I want to do? It's not all about her sister. I think for her, a lot of her world has been her sister. And she may not be the straight four-year college kid. She may not be, her path to success may be something different. But I want her to know that's okay.
And do you?
I do. We're not all going to be doctors and lawyers, and we're not all cut out for that same kind of structure. I want her to follow her heart and follow her dreams. And if that means she's a chef at culinary school, or that's her path, or she's a cosmetologist, her interests are different. And I tell her she has to use her skills. Like this kid, she's not the computer kid, like, playing all the computer games and that kind of stuff. If you give her 2 unrelated words, she can go on the internet and hook them up and come back in an hour and give you 10 sheets of research on what this thing is. I tell her that might be her gift. She might have to find some way to use that, the way that she processes information and the way she utilizes the computer and those kinds of tools to find a career that makes her happy. It might not be like her sister might want to be, an FBI agent or, whatever. It might not be something so structured and normal that she ends up falling into that makes her happy. But whatever it is, I just want her to be happy.
And I don't think you really have much to worry about her. The way that you bring her to life. If I had a video camera to video how much joy and excitement that you bring your girls to life. This is an unbelievable gift to me to see you light up like that.
It's, as a parent, it's hard to see somebody put your kid down. And I think what helped me decide to make the move I made when I left our family structure as it was because I wanted my kids to grow and to fly. And I didn't want them to feel like they weren't enough. I don't think I had the words then to vocalize that, but they can be whoever they want to be.
Absolutely.
And they can be good at whatever they choose to do. They don't have to fit in a certain box or a certain hole because someone says that's what I did and that's what you should do, or that's what I was good at, so that's what you need to do. You know what? There's a lot of things in this world, especially now with computers and the internet. There's a lot of other careers and opportunities that aren't as structured or as not as traditional as most parents think. Every parent says, I want my kid to be a doctor. I want my kid to be a lawyer. What if your kid doesn't have those kinds of grades? What if your kid doesn't have that kind of, those tools to do that? You're going to force them to do that? No, you can't. It's their life. It's their future. You want them to be happy with whatever they choose. And I wasn't in a situation that afforded them that kind of freedom. And I believe that they need that, So my kids are, and if you met them, you'd think they were really good. They're well mannered. They're good kids. But once you get to know them, knowing all the stuff they've gone through, they really are good kids. They'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. But if anything I can do, I'm just at that point. I want all the tools. Anything that I can do to help give them an edge, because now they don't have the same resources they did when we were an intact family. And they have suffered for that, and they will suffer for that. I mean, they've got a father who won't pay for college, a single mom who has no salary. I've got to figure out how to make that happen. And I don't want them to feel like they're missing out on whatever it is they want to do because I made that choice to break up our family.
So let me ask you this question. Do you beat yourself up for that decision?
I did in the beginning, but Alex, it's been we're going on 3 years now. I am so beyond that. What I realize now, like you said, is that I made a hard choice, but I made it for all the right reasons. And I'm giving my kids a chance. They would not be who they could be if I stayed. I believe that. They have more opportunities. Yes, it'll be difficult, but it's wide open for them. I feel badly they don't have the relationship that other kids have with their dad, and I pray every day that changes. But they're not the only kids that don't have a dad that's active in their life. They're not the only kids that are in a divorced family. People survive and thrive all the time in much worse situations. So I did what I had to do. I'm not going to apologize for that. I beat myself up about it for a while in the beginning, but I tell you what, I am so much healthier and so much happier. I'm in a better place, and my kids are too.
Good for you.
They don't know that some days, but they are. They are.
Good for you. So one of the things that you just touched the topic is about receiving that love from their father that you wish that they had. And it's very common in most of my trainings where teenagers come into the room and discover for themselves that there's a missing void that they've been trying to fill. Mm-hmm. And that's the love of a father. Because for the most part, I've noticed that it's a common theme where they're unfulfilled of some father's love. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people, teenagers, young adults, full-grown adults, get to realize that I can fulfill myself with my own love so much that it's not necessary to have that love from anyone else, whether it's my mom or my dad. And that coming to that conclusion, to that realization, frees you up to be able to accept any love that comes from your mom and dad, but not from a place of neediness. Mm-hmm. Like, I need your love, because if I need your love, now I need to get your approval for everything. Then I become a puppet. Mm-hmm. I'm a puppet doing whatever I need to do whatever song and dance necessary to get you to say, hey,
you're okay.
You're all right in my book. I'm proud of you. And that acknowledgement. So the key now moving forward, Janice, is about figuring out how to get your daughters to realize their own self-love for themselves so much that it's so overwhelming that it's spewing out of them.
All right.
So that they don't need to have it be a major insecurity where it's going to draw them to be in situations, always wanting it to be a fulfillment. Mm-hmm. That fulfillment comes from within myself, and to do the work necessary for them to heal themselves, to be able to get off their past. Because as human beings, we unconsciously bring our past into each new moment, and we taint the moment.
Yes.
And we sabotage it. And it's almost like we're living in a rerun, like an old rerun of a movie that keeps playing, like Groundhog Day. Did you ever see Groundhog Day?
Oh, yes.
So, if we can be able to do the work that we can fully get off of our past and let it go, and realize that each new moment is a brand new moment for me to recreate myself anew. Mm-hmm. And to define myself based on the choices, the actions, and the way that I get to who I get to be for the world in this new moment. And it takes some learning,
sure,
and discovering and practicing. I'm excited for the opportunity for you to introduce this new education. I call it education, but it's a self-education. And it's learning about us as human beings, how to be in relationships, how to communicate effectively, how to have the courage to be able to say, hey, Mom, this is bothering me. How to have the courage to be able to share what's going on with you. And so I look forward to not only working with you, but working with your daughters and help make a difference with you guys. Let's wrap this up. What are some of the things that opened up for you in this session?
I got validation, and that was huge for me because it didn't get supported and validated at home. And we haven't known each other long, but I think you understand where I was coming from. And I'm trying to be a parent. I have to. I've been put in a position. I put myself in a position where I have to be the parent. And that's okay. What I heard from you is that's okay. It's okay not to be their friend, to be the parent. But I have to have balance. I have to be loving and affectionate and open and vulnerable. And I've been very closed off and hardened because I have to be the protector and I've got to be the mom and the dad and take care of all the stuff now. And I still have to be vulnerable with them, and I have to understand that they are looking for things from me that maybe I wasn't willing to give because I wanted to keep them out of a lot. I was trying to shelter them from a lot of things. But I also understand from talking to you that a lot of what I'm seeing now is from old hurts, is from history. It's stuff that they're carrying around with them, from past, from when they were younger. And I need to help give them the freedom to let all that stuff go. I need to let them know it's okay to be who they are. They don't have to do anything wonderful, break any groundbreaking records or, anything earth-shattering like that for me to love them. They are enough. And I like that term because I think all my married life, that's all I wanted to be, was enough. And it was never enough. Everything I did was never enough. And I don't want them to grow up and get in a relationship with someone where they feel like they have to constantly be making that other person happy. They need to learn how to make themselves happy. They need to be okay with themselves so they don't have to look for that validation from someone else. And that's huge. That's key for teenagers. And I appreciate you just reiterating some things that I know I already knew and helping me to acknowledge some things that I need to do, that I knew I needed to do. We're gonna work together. We're gonna have some good experiences because I think they're at a place where they need it, and that it's certainly things that are gonna help them right now and in the future. So I'm very excited.
I'm excited for you, and wow, what an amazing realization. And it's amazing when you can bounce ideas off people. When you hear yourself speak, you get clearer and clearer about what's available for you and what possibilities are there for you to step into. Mm-hmm. I want to thank you, Janice, from the bottom of my heart for taking the opportunity to be here. And I'm honored to be a part of this process. It was very powerful, and I won't be the same because of your willingness to share.
I didn't know what to expect. I'm going to tell you honestly, I didn't know what to expect, but I am so glad that I made the time to be here with you. I've gotten a lot out of it, and I'm sure I'll get more out of it, but I understand that my daughters need this. They need this right now because I want them to be the women that I know they can be.
They have an amazing mom that has their back. There's no doubt in my mind that they're not going to be externally and internally successful, powerful young women. And I can't wait to see them at their wedding day and just enjoying life in each new moment and knowing that they're enough just for who they are.
It's possible.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It is. So thank you again. You're listening to Life Leadership with Alex Urbina right here in your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.
As parents, we want the best for our children. We want them to succeed in life far greater than we ever did. Many of us as teens weren't given the tools to help us navigate the extraordinary challenges of adulthood, leadership, and success. Give your teen the unique gift of seeing their life from a different perspective and introduce them to the champion that lives within. On January 21st and 22nd, teens from all over the country are coming together for a powerful life-altering weekend of discovery, responsibility, and leadership. Whether your teen is happy and content or in need of a little direction, don't miss this opportunity to help them tap into their ultimate potential. Join Alex Urbina in his 2-day Teen Life Leadership Training on January 21st and 22nd, taking place right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. For more information and to register, visit teenleadershipscv.com.